Welcome back, everybody. I'm Bruce, and it was a great pleasure that we're going to bring you something a little bit different today. You guys have grown accustomed to us talking about Commander, and we've always enjoyed talking about it, and we always will, but sometimes we need to mix it up a bit. We're collaborating with somebody different. We're collaborating with Jay from Mythic Mechanics to talk about something near and dear to his heart, and that we here on the show enjoy as well. It is Cube. That's right. We're going to do an arc here on the show talking about Cube, and not just any cube. We're talking about the cube that Mythic Mechanics has designed. He's a friend of the show and an overall pretty swell guy. So we're going to say hi to Jay. Jay, how are you today?
Hey, Bruce, I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I have to say, I had a lovely Easter weekend with my family and my kids. The Easter Bunny was very good to my kids and brought lots of treats and left lots of chocolate all over my house, but that's okay. How about you? You had a good weekend with family, or not so much?
Yeah, I'm good. Most of my family's down in Florida, so I just spending time hanging out with my dog, building lots of websites, starting a couple social media things, trying to stay busy.
There we go. There we go. All right. So, Jay, we have you on to talk about Cube with us tonight. But before we get you on the show, we got some questions we got to ask you, just so the people out there on the internet can get to know you, who you are, what you're all about. Are you ready for our rigorous interview section today on today's show?
I am. Shoot.
All right. Here we go. So, when did you start playing Magic?
I started in 1995 with my friends, playing around the good old living room table, playing on the floor during Ice Age and right around 4th edition. I remember my first deck was black blue counter discard, so I started off real nice.
Oh, so you're playing Hypnotic Specters and Mind Twist and all the giggles?
Yeah, Dark Ritual, Hypnotic Spectre, Duress, Counterspell, but the big hitters were Sengir Vampire and Mahamati Jin.
Yes, they were.
Some fun stuff like Skeleton Ship and Giant Oyster, I remember. Some -1/-1 counters on everything. That was fun.
Yes,
I'm trying to remember some of the more obscure cards. Limdul's Vault. I was a player of Limdul's Vault 20 plus years ago. Great card.
Brainstorm.
Yes, definitely 4 brainstorms for sure. Back in the day.
These were. I'm going to be honest. The people out there may know you and I are of a similar vintage. This is where I was playing as well too. I remember Polar Kraken, and I remember all the ridiculous Ice Age cards, and wondering why. I didn't understand at the time how bad some of them were and how outrageously great some of the other ones were as well. So it was a time of innocence. We didn't know any better. There was no talk of a curve or like being super efficient with your spells. It was just jam a bunch of nonsense and see what happens.
Right. Lots of Shivan Dragons and Lightning Bolts.
See, that was where I went. I played a lot of red green beats, so I had like the curd apes, the giant gross, and a force of nature, and I had a full play set of Shivan Dragons, and I was like the cat's butt right there with that one. So it was pretty wild, and it was so much simpler than it is today, where we didn't know any better. We just played on the kitchen table or in the basement, or we were at a camp out and we were like playing on the 10th floor. We just played our cards, and I found them years later and they're just savaged by time. But anyway, that sounds super good.
Do you remember Orcish Lumberjack and the Ball Lightning? That was the Ice Age technique.
I remember that. So Ball Lightning was from the dark, and so it was like already kind of hard to get a hold of. They had printed Ball Lightning, I think, in Chronicles. So like you could get like a cheap copy, but it was white bordered and it looked terrible. So yeah,
but I had all white border cards.
Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, like Chronicles, like people who don't like are complaining about reprinting of stuff. They had no idea. Chronicles looked so terrible, and they reprinted all the weird bad legends from Legends in it, and like you could get the Elder Dragons, and I thought Arcade Sabbath was the coolest thing ever. So the big colored dragon, and you could do, and it would pump your team, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And in the end, it was all ridiculous. So we never play them today. So
Yeah, Chronicles was the reason they made the reserve list.
they did. And also at the time, we didn't know any better. We were like, why does it matter if people play these dual lands? I remember my brother, and I'm sure everyone's got one of these stories we played back then. Like, you trade your dual land for a whole bunch of junk, and then today your dual land's worth $1,000, and the junk you traded for was worth nickels. So
Yes, I did have. That was one of the reasons that this will transition into my cube very well, because uh, after I started playing, right when I graduated high school, well, I started playing like probably around ninth or 10th grade. But then by the time
yeah.
I graduated high school, I got a job at Encounter Comics in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I worked at a comic book store. So I had access to all the best cards and people who were trading stuff in. My boss, Oliver, at the Encounter in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, if you ever have a chance to go, it's a great place. He's a great owner. He was very, very nice. He gave me some gifts just for working there. One day I came into work and he gave me a mock sapphire. Yep. So I quickly built up 40 duels and Power 9, which I sadly decided to sell. I went to college in Philadelphia and no one played Magic. So I sold my 40 duels and Power 9 in college and bought Technics turntables, which are still sitting here right next to me, so I can still use them. But they're definitely not worth what Power 9 and 40 duels is worth.
No. Oh no!
But I quickly learned, as we'll talk about a little bit more once we get to the cube topic, I quickly learned that when you get 40 duels and Power 9, that puts you in a certain power level, sort of what we call brackets now. And so what happened was I quickly realized that playing a powerful deck, I had Necropotence, Time Twister, and it quickly became a combo deck. And I realized I couldn't play my friends anymore because it wasn't really fair. So then I learned that, okay, when I have a deck with 40 duels and Power 9, you need to find someone of a similar power level to play against. And once you do that, I sort of realized that it wasn't so much fun anymore. And I know fun means something different to everyone. Fun is a very subjective term. And each person has their own definition of what is fun and what is a good game and what is a casual game. And I realized that once you have a power deck and you're playing against somebody else with a power deck, it quickly turns into either who makes the first mistake or who has a bad draw. And to me, that sort of started blurring the lines between casual play and competitive play. And I found myself definitely leaning on the side of what I consider to be fun and casual play. Did you run into something similar?
Not not in the same way. Not when I was a teenager. We none of us had a group of cards that were that powerful. None of us had access to those sort of things. Although there was the odd person who had a dual land floating around. That was much later when I was rejoined the game in 2012 and experimenting with standard, and then recognizing that playing standard wasn't really for me because, again, similar to what you just experienced, that where the variance of the deck was suitably high because I couldn't necessarily afford all the best cards to play the format, I ended up having to, either luck out basically and be a big old luck sack, or I had to concede that I couldn't play competitively in the sense of like 1v1 tournaments, but I would rather play in a more casual sense where the pressure to draw and draw well and avoid the variance of your inherent in Magic wasn't as much of a driving factor to your success of your deck. So it was similar in some respects, but a different route to get to the same outcome, I think, which is why you and I both ended up here, so to speak. So let's move on and I'm going to ask you the question: what are your favorite ways to play Magic now? If you don't want to play competitively, how do you like to play Magic?
I play just in home games. I'll go to an LGS every once in a while, but I have 2 to 3 people who host pretty consistently, and I like playing with my friends because we can have the rule zero conversation, and we can talk about what sort of like power level our deck is, whether we're running infinite combos, whether we're running instant win conditions, whether we're playing some type of stacks. Land destruction, of course, has been the big house rule ever since I was a kid. Nobody's ever really wanted to play against land destruction except the most competitive and powerful decks are okay because they can handle it. So I play a lot of Commander. My friends and I just started. We've been playing my cube for a while, and that's been going well. It's good to see everybody's faces when they open a pack full of $15, $20 cards, $100 cards, and see the excitement on their face, and they're like, "Wow, I just drafted a Library of Alexandria." But yeah, mostly just Commander at this point. I did play online for a while. I played Arena during the beta, but then when they cleared the beta and started everybody over with 0 cards again, I haven't played since then. And I was a big fan of MTGO. I remember back in around 2003, 2004, maybe, I started playing MTGO, and I've had several collections on there. And that was also where I quickly saw if anybody plays online poker compared to like sitting down at a regular table at Texas Hold'em, you see how playing online is really an accelerated, exaggerated version of playing in person. And you'll see how I quickly noticed what type of decks people will concede against. Some people call it rage quitting. I was never really a fan of that term. I think I'm somebody who might just concede a little bit more than most other people, and I'm kind of okay with that. But I saw online like how people will see one card and just concede to that card because they assume the rest of the deck is a certain thing. And I've sort of built up a pattern of recognition of like what type of things that I really feel are fun to most people and what type of things are not fun to other people. But I've had a great experience across all types of Magic. Like we said back in 1994, it was all 60 card decks, and you might play some multiplayer, but it was all 60 card decks, 4 of each card. But I really appreciate Commander these days. Playing a lot of Commander.
Excellent. No, it's important to realize that I think one of the things that people don't talk enough about when Magic is that our time is valuable, particularly if you're a casual player where you play only sometimes. That when you do play, you don't really want to spend your time playing against decks that really don't lend to experiences that you're going to enjoy. And I think playing online creates a dynamic where you can just scoop and walk away, whereas in playing in paper, that's why that rule zero conversation or that discussion around a game we're going to try and craft together is so important, because if it goes a particular way in paper, it's much harder to just throw it all in and say we're done here, because it takes time to get your deck out, shuffle it, get it, draw your 7, develop the game enough, and then decide, well, this isn't fun. Online, just throw it away and start again, and there's of little to no cost, or you see it very prominently in Arena, where people they took a look at your deck. If you counter their key spell early in the game, they usually will just wrap it up and say move on. Anyway, we are here to talk about. Oh, go ahead. No.
Is there a penalty? I haven't played Arena in a while. Is there a penalty for conceding in Arena?
So, if you're playing on one of the ladders, so you're ranked, you can see that your ranking will decrease, but only to a point. So if I'm playing in the gold bracket and I lose enough matches, I will bring myself down right to the bottom of gold. But once you're there, you can't go any lower. You cannot drop down to silver, even if you are not being successful playing your game, whether because you're conceding or the deck you're playing is poorly prepared for the meta, and you lose a lot, right? So you can only get punished so far. If you're playing Brawl, there really is no drawback to conceding. And many people just don't bother. They just I'm done. There is, I think they're experimenting with a type of Brawl ladder right now on Arena, but I haven't gone venturing into there yet. I'm not sure I want to, as I tend to want to experiment more with decks rather than sit down and want to brew up a deck that's going to beat the meta, so to speak. So there isn't a lot of penalty in Arena to being to conceding your match, even if you still have a fighting chance to play your game and win from somewhere. And sometimes I find that really rewarding when you stick it out. But lots of times people just don't bother and they just move on.
Those are some of the best games, the close games where they're neck and neck down to the end, or somebody makes a big comeback.
Well, I love the idea of like fighting back out of being in a almost an impossible position and sticking it out. So I think I stick it out more than many, because I don't like to concede. Now there are times when I'm like, oh, you've just going to stacks me out of the game. I'm just going to stop. Again, my time is more valuable than trying to play through 3 different stacks pieces. But no, I find that lots of players aren't even prepared. It's a simple like negate of their thing, and they decide, well, I'm not playing you because you've countered my key piece, and I'm like, well, that's very delightful of you. Thank you. All right.
Yes.
We are here. We are talking about your cube. So tell us about your cube. I call it the elevator pitch. So if you have your elevator pitch of your cube, sell it to me, sell it to the audience out there. What makes your cube cool and different than everybody else's?
Well, Mythic Mechanics Singleton Cube is fundamentally based on proxies. I print proxies for my friends, for myself, for several reasons. But this cube is made for the excitement value and the idea of balance and playing with your friends in a way that you can just open up a pack, look through the pack, and have a lot of options and not have to worry so much about passing a card because you might not see it come back. There's other cards to get. The set's very focused on mythics and rares as the preferred rarity. There's a couple uncommons, a couple commons, but again, it's singleton. And the idea is that you're going to get the chance to draft a lot of cards that you wouldn't normally see come around the table again, and be able to do it in a way that you avoid the stress, and you're not so funneled into trying to draft a specific archetype or compete with friends for specific synergies. Whereas when Magic will build a set, when the Wizards and the Hasbro people will build a set, they'll have it focused on a particular type of synergy for each color, even particular color pairs. So yeah, go ahead with the next question after I describe the cube.
Well, so I think you help the audience understand where the mythic name comes from, because your cube list includes a lot of mythics. Where does the mechanics component fit into the name Mythic Mechanics?
Oh, that's a very good question. I guess I sort of forgot that in my elevator pitch. The other goal of it is to include one of each of roughly over 300 mechanics that Magic has right now. So everything from banding and stuff like banding. Regenerate is another old one that people don't remember. First Strike was out. All these mechanics from the very first set in alpha, all the way up to new things like sneak and fire bending, metal bending. And then with the new set coming out, we'll be adding the cards for prepared, which is a big hot topic right now.
Is it ever?
I have a spreadsheet on my website, mythicmechanics.com. You can see that there's roughly about 355 mechanics right now. Not all of them apply to one-on-one. This cube is focused on one-on-one heads-up play. So some of them just don't really apply or have that much effect in one-on-one play, so we left out some of that. And then some of the other mechanics that are focused on specific formats like Archenemy and whatnot. It boils down to about 300 mechanics. And thankfully, a lot of cards have more than one mechanic on them. So we had some room just for some expensive, rare, hard-to-find bangers and old cards that you'll never draft again without paying thousands of dollars for a box or thousands of dollars for a pack.
Right.
Right. Just trying to include one of each mechanic.
I think that is a really cool way to approach a cube. I've played lots of different cubes. I've built my own cube, but I think I've never approached one from the standpoint of all the different mechanics are included in the environment, meaning that you're going to get a smattering of lots of different things, but you're not going to get overwhelmed like a preponderance of one particular mechanic to drive your deck archetype, which makes it an interesting deck brewing challenge that I think players may find a kind of a refreshing take on it. Now, I guess we're gonna move on. Sort of. Let's. I think you expressed it really quite well in terms of like what it is your cube is all about, what it's and what the sale pitch is. Let's get down to the business. What do you think that coming on with us today on the show or over the next number of shows will give your cube experience? Like, what do you think we can do for you to make Mythic Mechanics pretty cool?
Well, I've been listening to the Epic Experiment podcast, and I've helped you with transitioning to the new brand, Garbage or Great. We have a website up, garbageorgreat.com. That's in progress of being built. And I really respect each of your opinions when it comes to strategy and deck building and synergy and being able to look at cards in a way that I don't really look at them. When I try to say that I play for fun and I play casually, that doesn't mean that I don't want to meet people somewhere in the middle. And I really do respect the way that you guys find cards that work together. You find cards in budget ways, and I'm excited to see what type of feedback you'll have to make the cube a little bit more sharp and a little bit more to have some synergy to it, without making it broken and predictable in a way that some of the other vintage cubes are, where you're always going for the same kind of stuff. I'm just excited to hear how we can look at individual cards and talk about what someone might think when they open up a pack and they see this. Does this card make you expect to see other cards? And are the cards good? Is it valuable? Which ones are dead picks? Which ones are the best picks? And like, what's sort of the ideal decks that you're trying to build with this cube?
I like that. So I like that you're going to allow us to sort of move into the realm of helping to craft your play experience by looking at your cards and essentially doing what we do best, which is looking at whether a card is garbage or great and where it fits into your framework for your cube, but still allowing your cube to be fun, replayable, and an experience that someone sitting down to play with you is going to enjoy time and time again. I think that is probably the piece that I think is often missed when people brew up decks, that they're not worried about the experience of the other people. And I think one of the things that you and I have in common is that you and I are both predicated on making sure that when everyone sits down to play, when you get your pod of 6 or 8 people, or your commander pod, or whatever it is you're doing tonight, that everybody tries to have fun experiences, because like I said, time is important to you and I. We're older. We don't have just an inordinate amount of time to sit around and play games with our friends online and only go to class 3 hours a week. We got stuff to do, right? We're busy adults. Right. We got things to do. So when we do sit down to game, let's make sure that the experience is very positive. So I'm really much looking forward to the opportunity to talking cube with you. I love talking cube. And I think it allows us to do what I do best, and help your cube be fun and cool and something that people are going to really enjoy, by having just a healthy conversation around what is going to be included and what that might mean for other people to come along. So I think that's a really excellent place to start. Now, I guess, without getting into it, how we're going to sort of lay it out, I think, Jay, I think one of the things that we need to tell everybody, we're going to look at this color by color, right? So we're going to go through and lay it out in Wooburg, white, blue, like whatever, and then look at some artifacts and multicolored things at the end. So over the next number of weeks, audience, you're going to hear us talk about each of the colors, and the link to Jay's list is going to be included down below in the notes. Additionally, you also have a link to his website so you can see the whole thing. So you can go and check out mythicmechanics.com and see, it is .com, right? It is.
Yep, mythicmechanics.com. You can download it yourself, do it yourself, print out the whole card list if you want to. I also have things like printer-friendly basic lands where I modified it to use less ink, so you can print out a bunch of basic lands that will fit perfectly with the other proxies and not waste so much printer ink.
That is fantastic. So yeah, I think we'll go break it down color by color, and we'll have an in-depth conversation about what each of the colors might signal or represent, and talk about some of the card selections, and maybe try and propose some different alternatives to see if those might help improve the gameplay experience. And then at the end, we'll have sort of a holistic, generalized conversation around the whole cube and what that might look like for people sitting down to play with you, or if they make the cube themselves. I really like this conversation because I like the fact that it's a cube that is community driven, that is accessible because it's all proxies, which I think is important, and then something that we're going to have a thoughtful conversation around what's included is going to lend itself to people out there looking to maybe get their toes wet playing a little bit of cube, but they find playing full-on vintage cube a little bit daunting because of all the synergy components that are wrapped up in it. I think yours is going to be quite interesting because it's going to be a little bit different in terms of its approach. Is there anything else that you would like to pitch at this point around your cube or your philosophy around Magic, or anything else that we haven't touched on before we sort of wrap up today, and then get braced for the next time we get together to talk about the color white in your cube?
I think the only thing I hadn't mentioned that goes along with the idea of using mostly rares and mythics is just that each card in the cube isn't intended to be great on its own. So that card, if you draft it, it should work in almost any deck, and people can definitely see it as being full of broken cards, but the card might be broken on its own and will work in a lot of ways by itself without having to rely on other cards that go together. So again, it's just the idea of the cards being balanced, and I think that that's where I'd like your help and Sneaky Pete's help to make sure that the colors are balanced and that the cards are all balanced with one another for an equal power and a fun experience. And even if the cards are powerful, you're playing against a similar power level in the other colors.
Absolutely, that's perfect. I think it's a great way of framing it. I really, really, really like to get into what's in there, what's included, and what we can do to make your cube even a little bit better. I'm very excited. I have to say, audience, very excited. I do love talking cube. I'm very, very pumped. All right, I think at this point today, we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to get ready so that we can start our arc, so that we get started. Next week, we get together, and we're talking white cards in Mythic Mechanics cube, and the garbage are great. All right, folks. Thanks very much for joining us today. If you want to check out any of the things we talked about in terms of the cube list, it's down below in the show notes. Additionally, you can go find links to our show, our website, and our social media platforms, so you can go and find us. Don't forget, we've also are adding more to the YouTube channel, so you can find it. It is still labeled as The Epic Experiment, but you can still find the link is down there as well too, including increased gameplay video where I'm playing Brawl for you guys, and anything else that I can get a hold on to. All right, folks. With that said, we're going to bid Jay a good evening, and we'll wish you all a good week, and we'll be back next week to talk more Mythic Mechanics and Cube with Jay. Thanks very much, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.